Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Jefferson Highway Show. This historic highway was formed in 1915 by the Jefferson Highway Association. It runs from Winnipeg, Canada, all the way to New Orleans, Louisiana. Let's go! So everyone, welcome to Big Blend Radio. You know, we love the Jefferson Highway. It's a historic highway that goes from Winnipeg in Canada, in Manitoba, all the way down to New Orleans in Louisiana. And along the way, there is so much history to discover, and that's where we're going today. We're going to discover more history, and we're going to be chatting with Jordan Boyd. He is the director of the Dobson Museum and Home, which is in Miami, Oklahoma. If I'm pronouncing this correctly, he's gonna correct me, because when you read it, it says Miami, Oklahoma. So, Jordan, welcome, and please let me know about how I'm pronouncing things.
Thank you. I'm glad to be on here with you today. Yes, it's spelled Miami, like you would see Miami, Florida, but it's pronounced Miami for our Native American tribe that's here, the Miami tribe.
Wow. And so does the museum have exhibits that focus on their history?
We do. We actually have a very unique history. So our museum, we cover all of Ottawa County. Ottawa County is the far northeastern county in Oklahoma. So we border the four states area, touching southeast Kansas, southwest Missouri, and northwest Arkansas. And just throughout the history of our county is very unique. But we're actually the only county in the United States that has 10 Native American tribes with allotment lands within it, 9 that are headquartered here in Ottawa County.
Wow. Okay. So this is some great history for people to experience, and at the same time, you're the Dobson home as well. So who's the Dobsons?
Yes,
Who are, I should say, because I'm talking to a museum professional here. You're going to get me on my English too.
Well, and they were there. There are no longer any Dobsons that live in Ottawa County. We do have relatives who visit. There are cousins to the Dobson family who live in Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama, and Texas. But our Dobson family that lived here, they moved here from a town called Cuba, Kentucky, which is just south of Paducah and Mayfield in western Kentucky. They came here in 1894 by covered wagon, and they had 4 children in their family, but their eldest daughter passed away before they moved here. Her name was Martha. And then the parents were Solomon and Lucinda Dobson. And the other 3 children were Wayman, Sully, and Nellie. And Nellie was the youngest member of the family, and she was actually the last surviving member of the family. So, being no descendants, none of the children ever married or had any children. And so, when Nellie passed away, she left in her will that she wanted her home left as a memorial to her family, and she wanted somewhere for county history to be preserved. And she was a part of the group that got started in the early 60s. So 1968 was the year that Nellie passed away. And in the early 60s, a group of residents got together actually in the lobby of the Miami Hotel in downtown Miami. And they decided that they needed to find a location to start preserving history and saving some of these pieces for future generations and kind of telling our story. And at that time, when they got the museum started, there wasn't any cultural centers or museums for any of our tribes. Several of our tribes have those now, but at that time they didn't. So many early chiefs and tribal leaders got involved at that time, as well as other citizens, educators and retired educators and other business people in the community to establish a museum. And how our museum came to be known as Dobson was through that of Nellie. So not only did she want her home left as a memorial to her family, but built onto her garage was the museum. So the museum originally started on Main Street, where Security Bank is now, on the 2nd floor. But in those first few years, they started to realize, as they accumulated artifacts and items for the archive, it was only accessible by a stairwell off of Main Street.
Wow.
So it was a challenge to get some items upstairs, and it was also a challenge for some visitors to come to the museum. And so Nellie, through her trust that she established to leave her property in, had the museum built onto her garage. And so for 50 years, the museum was housed in that building. And right now, we're currently under a project of renovating that building, and we've moved to an annex on Main Street in Miami while we renovate that building, which Main Street in Miami happens to be where Route 66, the Jefferson Highway, and the Ozark Trail pass through town.
Oh, wow. So you have all three. This is
We do.
amazing.
We do.
So can so the Jefferson Highway goes through Route 66. So does it do a crossroads like the Jefferson Highway from what I've seen is always like kind of going down and the Route 66 crosses it, right? You
Yeah,
know, yeah, the Route 66 is more east west west east, Jefferson Highway north south south north, but like the Ozarks now we need to talk about that too.
the Ozark Trail's a very interesting one because it almost kind of makes like a web. It goes out several different directions. And Ozark Trail, I don't know how much you know about the history behind who started
Zero.
the Ozark Trail, but there was a man by the name of Coin Harvey in Northwest Arkansas. He had a resort called Montanay, and it was over near where Beaver Lake is. And he wanted to build up roads, which was in a part of the Good Roads movement around the time when Jefferson Highway and others had started. And he wanted roadways built towards his resort. So the Ozark Trail stretched west into other parts of Oklahoma and even far as New Mexico and Las Vegas, and then north and to the east. And so they spread out and stretched several different ways. And we have a little brochure that we've put together out of our archive that kind of gives a little bit of that history, because not only those three highways, but Ottawa County is also where the Shawnee Cattle Trail came through from Texas
Oh,
to Kansas,
yeah.
and what they refer to as the Old Texas Road, which was the military road or the military trail that went from Fort Leavenworth, Kansas down to Fort Towson.
Wow. So
And Fort
you are like a hotbed of like culture. Like everyone came through your town.
We are, and I always kind of say, it's very interesting. We're pretty much, you could call us the crossroads of the country, but then we're also kind of where you lay out the welcome mat to people who came to India Territory.
Oh, okay. So wow. So yeah, so this is fascinating because when you think about the Dobson family and what their vision was, and you think about the history of museums, I just have finished a three-part series with artist Victoria Chick. She's creating a museum in Silver City, New Mexico, a fine art museum, and starting one from scratch. And I know you have huge museum history. You've got awards for it. I mean, you understand this wanting to do something. And she goes, it's an art community, but you're in New Mexico with Santa Fe and Albuquerque taking, all this wonderful glory, which they should. But she goes, if you're going to be an art community, you need a fine art museum that also educates, right? And she's doing this. And then she did this three-part series on the history of museums, starting from the beginning, which I couldn't believe came from the Middle East from a woman that said, we need to show this. It really did start with people's houses, right?
For
And these
sure.
cabinets of curiosities. So that's kind of streamlining to what's kind of happened with the Dobson house, right? It went from a home to we're going to show this, but now we're going further afield because this is our community, and all of this went down. Like if you think about everyone that, I mean, my mind's pretty blown about how much has happened in one area, that the crossroads of America, like you said, this is
Very
pretty
much.
huge.
Very much so. And I always say, too, to a lot of our tour groups and our visitors that come through, Miami is a unique experience in itself, because we have on Main Street what they refer to as the jewel of Route 66, which is the Coleman Theater, was built in 1929 by the Coleman family, and they were involved in lead and zinc mining along with the Dobson family. And you visit the Dobson home, and we have all the original furnishings that belong to the Dobson family. If you go on a lot of tours of historic homes in the country, you run across a similar story when you first begin your tour, which is we've had to purchase period appropriate, or this is to resemble a certain era when the family lived here, but unfortunately we don't have those pieces. That's not our story. We have the pieces. Nellie left her home and the contents of her home in the trust. There's a few decor items and there's a few pieces in the house that are not original to the family that have been added over the years, but very, very minimal. At least 98% of the contents is what was in there when Nellie passed away. And so that's very rare that you get to visit a town that has a home like that. But then the story of the theater, it had passed from the Coleman family to the city of Miami, and it was in very need of repairs. It remained open throughout that time, but it was in desperate need of repairs that a group of citizens got together. And that's another piece that I always say about Miami is we have strong volunteerism in the community, and many that have been involved in the theater over the years are involved in the museum and many other organizations and groups when you look across not only the city of Miami, but for the whole county of Ottawa County. Very strong people and very community driven and civic minded in what they do. That in the early 90s, a group of citizens got together and formed the Friends of the Coleman Theater. And they went in and helped restore the sconces, the stage, the seats. They scraped gum off the floor,
Wow.
cleaned out the bathrooms, whatever needed done. And then there were major repairs as far as the heating and cooling system, the roof, the screen, several other things that needed to be addressed, the concession area. When the theater was originally built, the ballroom was never finished, and that group of volunteers got together and raised the funds to complete the ballroom. And now it has the hardwood floors, the sconces, the drapes that match the rest of the theater, and it's
Wow.
used for all kinds of venues and events. And of course, it always gets the glory of being referred to as the jewel of Route 66, but it sets on there where the historic Jefferson Highway and the Ozark Trail once passed through. And we get many tours and groups that come through, and it's still so active today and such an active part of the community. They play silent movies down there. They have all kinds of shows and concerts throughout the year. It's used by local groups and local school groups for graduations, for other choir recitals, dance recitals, other programs. Many people, like I said, use it for weddings and anniversary parties and other, can rent it for family events or class reunions or such things. And even our Miami Little Theater puts on four productions each year there, and they host in the summer, which I think is just fantastic for our community to have this. So many of our young children who are wanting to get into drama and theater, they put on a junior play and teach the kids how to audition and be in a cast and read a script and do all those things that you need to know to give them experience in that.
Well, I love that you bring the youth into that too. Does the museum, do you do youth, like, group tours for schools?
We do. There's several different ways that we do that. And that's one thing that I love about my job is just the people that I get to encounter and the things that I get to do. And there's only one way that we're able to do that, and that's because of the foresight of Nellie Dobson. I mean, she was only involved for a short time in the very beginning of the museum, but I think she saw way down the road the potential that the museum had, and she had the resources to keep the museum going. And we're just so thankful for what she did, because there's many museums our size that most of them have to donate just to keep the doors open and certain projects going. Nellie's Trust pays my salary and my assistants, and then all the rest of our staff throughout the museum are volunteers, members of the board. But then also we have a strong group of volunteers in the historical society that help us with the events and other things that we put on, that they come through. But all of our donations strictly go to exhibits, preservation, and other project needs that we have. So we've assembled traveling trunks and we take them out to the area schools, and we highlight the two trunks we have right now is one about the symbols of Oklahoma, teaching the students about our different state symbols from our state flag, state flower. Oklahoma is one, which actually, this fact, both of these happen to be on the Jefferson Highway. There's only two states in the country that have a state meal. Oklahoma is one, and Louisiana is the other one.
Ooh.
Um, and so through that trunk, we teach them about some of those facts and emblems, and we have pictures and props and things throughout the trunk. We also have books and activities.
Wait. Let's go back to that food. We want to hear about the food. Okay, so because Louisiana, I think about Natchitoches and the meat pie and beignets in New Orleans, and there's Tabasco, which people don't realize Tabasco sauce comes from Little Avery Island off of Lafayette, but that's not on the Jefferson Highway. But there is Boudin in Southwest. So, what is the Louisiana meal and what's the Oklahoma meal?
I haven't actually looked up to see what all the Louisiana meal is, but I need to. But the Oklahoma meal, you would think it was your last meal. It all sounds very good to me, but it's a chicken fried steak, fried okra, beans and cornbread, strawberries, milk. There, I believe there's about 15 different options to
That
the.
almost sounds southern.
Oh yes, very much so, very much so.
Wow, I didn't
But
know that.
they all sound very delicious to me.
When anyone says cornbread, I'm there. I know. I've just been doing. Yeah, but so you're teaching the kids this out of a trunk, what their state is. So when you're taking this out to schools, or as people, school groups come to the museum, what about for families coming? Are there exhibits that kids that are from a different state that can identify with Oklahoma?
We do, and this is actually one that can tie into our local students, but we've even had students from out of state who participate in the summers, which we'll be doing at the 5 Thursdays in July this summer. We do Dobson Discovery Days, which is a scavenger hunt in the museum.
Cool.
So for the kids that come in, because we have a lot of artifacts and things throughout the museum, that trying to make it relevant to kids to kind of teach them about, well, what was this used for, or what was this, because there's so many things that kids come in, and that's kind of like I teach when I go out and I do programs with the trunk. There are so many things in the museum that people used long before the days of you had, oh, this, you just pushed a button or you plugged something into the wall. There was a lot of things you had to manually use and do. And so through our scavenger hunts that we put on, we usually have about 10 items that we pick and give different clues or photographs to find them. And then we have kind of a sheet at the end of it that gives them a little explanation about what was this used for, or how did the museum come about, getting this item or this collection donated. And it gives them a little bit of history, whether it's something related to a local tribe or a town or something that's on display.
That's so cool. And then, for people to come in, I always think that when people are traveling somewhere new, or maybe it's, to connect with family or see friends, if you go to the museum, you will understand more when you walk the downtown or go to a natural park or anything. Wouldn't you say it's like a museum is like the in-depth visitor center?
For
And you should
sure,
go there first.
for sure.
Yeah, it's and I think Oklahoma's history, it is actually pretty just it is so diverse, because and Missouri is kind of like that too, where people don't realize like there's such huge Native American culture, but then Civil War history as well, and there's just all of this history. It was when you talk about crossroads, I think Oklahoma is one of these crossroads. I know you're in the middle, but you're still southwest, but kind of in the middle, but isn't this kind of a crossroads of America in general?
Oh yes, and that goes back to talking about the military road a minute ago. Fort Towson, Indian Territory. That's where the last fighting ceased of the Civil War,
Wow. Oh,
because they signed at Appomattox, but it took until that was in April of 1865. It took until June 20th, 1865, before they got word to Indian Territory that the war was over, and that's when General Stan Wadey surrendered.
and we think we're going into July. We're getting into that time of where it did kind of end, and Gettysburg and all of that. I think Gettysburg's July 1st and 3rd through 3rd, I think, when the
Yes.
Battle of Gettysburg happened. Now, in the Southwest history, I always thought that Fort Bowie in southeast Arizona. I know I'm going off on a tangent here, so you can just say like no at any time. But I remember going to Fort Bowie out in southeast Arizona. It's where Apache Pass is, and the California Column came through there. And I always thought, weren't they part of ending the Civil War? That people didn't realize, like the Southwest, going all the way even from there through Oklahoma, had a hand in ending it. Am I like way off? And that's okay to say I'm way off because,
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't read on that part. So
yeah, I think I'm
uh,
way off. It's okay to be way off. But we travel so much and you learn so much, and then you're like, wait, was it here? Was it there? No, no,
well,
because it's interesting, when
it's
you
definitely
go.
one thing I've learned about being in the museum business is it's very easy to go down a rabbit hole sometimes because we
Yes.
research questions and things, and sometimes somebody asks me a question and I know a definite answer, and then there's other times I look at it and I'm like, well, we'll see what we can locate for you, and then sometimes five rabbit holes later I have an answer.
Well, who okay, so you have the Native American culture, and that's there, and there's movement with that. And then who moved to Oklahoma? Like, who are the first, were the first, like, immigrants to Oklahoma?
We have a lot of settlers that came just moving westward. So, one of the big influx of people that first came was just people for farming. That's what the vast prairie land, and for a lot of reasons, most of the people that first came, after our tribes were farmers because they did a lot of haying and ranching. And then there was kind of a second drive and some of it was just mainly people out of the Ozarks just moving further west. So a lot of people that settled in Ottawa County came from parts of Missouri and Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama, and moved this way. Now, one of the after farmers came, one of the next influx of people was miners, which it's very interesting to be so close, but yet our mining history is a little bit different because when you look at the mining that happened in southeast Kansas, many of those families were immigrants from
Mm-hmm.
Europe that came over, and most of our miners who were here in Ottawa County were more local along those lines of people that moved here from Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas, Kentucky.
Wow, that's so fascinating because I know you know about Miners Hall Museum. You interned there,
I
right,
did.
with Phyllis over there, and she sent me emails going, this Jordan is a history buff, and you started young, right? I wanted to bring this up.
I did, yes.
I no, but this is, I was just telling, Nancy, I said, you look at what you've done, and everyone go to dobsonmuseum.com, everyone. Like, go there. It's in the episode notes as well. So you can go and visit and learn. But go look up Jordan's, bio here, the executive director. And it sounds like you were one of those high school kids, or even maybe even younger, that went to a museum and really went down the rabbit hole and never pulled out. Am I
I
quite right about this? Because you ended up interning at the Miners Hall Museum, then going to the Smithsonian on a bigger exhibit. I mean, am I quite right on this?
you're about spot on there. So when I was in school, I was very interested in being a history teacher, is what I wanted to go to college for. And I've always said one of the things that I'm always a big supporter of is internships and interns, and that's what we've hosted several interns over the years here at the museum. Right now we currently have a intern from Pittsburgh State at Pittsburgh, Kansas, that's
Ah,
interning with us this summer. But I've always been a big supporter of that because I started out when I was a student at NEO, which is our junior college here in Miami. I received a scholarship where part of the scholarship was you volunteered so many hours a week at the museum. So I had been here to the Dobson several different times when I was a child. I'd been a couple times with my family, and then I was involved in 4-H when I was younger, and we used to have like 4-H day camp in the summer, and they would take us around and do different activities. And I remember coming to the museum, and I, the first memory I have of stepping inside the Dobson, I was just in awe. I mean, I was ready to read every little card and look at every little thing throughout the whole museum. I could have stayed there all day and just been quiet.
I think it's amazing to me because when you look at the youth going into a museum, do you believe you've got the internship and everything, but do you think when kids go to a museum it changes their life? Because I've seen it. We did a several coloring books over our careers in the publishing industry over the, I mean, we're talking going from the 80s to now, print coloring books, and we'd put a picture from something in a museum, and then the kids color it in, and then they drag their parents to the museum, and then it starts from there. So do you think it's really important that kids go to museums? Because I look at your life and I go, isn't this the perfect example of why, you know, sometimes in history, history is a hard sell until people realize it's good gossip. It's family history. It's good gossip. It's what happened, what went down. And I always thought people didn't realize a museum is not a stuffy place. And when you get to have kids go in, whether it's a school group or a family goes in with their kids, that something will resonate with a kid and make them change how they are when they're sitting in a class in history, because sometimes schools, they don't have the things to make history come alive, but when sometimes you go to a museum it can really change you, or if you go to a battlefield or a historical site like a fort or something. What do you think on that?
Oh, I definitely agree with that because I know, that's why I love to do anytime we have an opportunity like the traveling trunks we put on the Dobson Discovery Days or even any other event or anything. Because we even do just at the holidays, we started this several years ago and made it an annual tradition. And we do Christmas at the Dobson house. So we have Santa Claus visit that night and the kids can have their photo with him. We do some years we'll do like cookie decorating or ornament decorating. We'll have refreshments and live music from a band, and the house completely decorated for anybody in the community to come, and it's free for anybody to come and enjoy and visit and tour and look around. And those are always some of my favorite times and special events. Is anytime we can open our doors to the community, because that's why the museum's here. That was the intent of the Dobson family. They built this for the community and for the county. So anytime that we can draw youth and young children in and let them experience the museum, that's one of the whole purposes of why we're here. And I see that time and time again, even when we have school tours and school groups, because we've had students in the past, elementary kids that I've either brought a traveling trunk to their school or they've come on a field trip with their teacher and then they bring mom and dad, grandpa and grandma back, brothers and sisters. And I remember just one example. We had a little boy one year that he brought all of his family back and there was like certain things. I mean, he could have given them their own little tour. He brought them right through and had to show them everything. And the grandma had told us before they left, she said, he has talked nonstop about this ever since he came here with his class.
That is awesome, isn't it?
Yes.
And I think that about, I look at this with the Jefferson Highway project, obviously the same with Route 66, right? Route
Yeah,
66, I mean, it's celebrating its centennial next year in 2026, which is awesome because the highway almost dropped off the radar, right?
for sure.
And Jefferson Highway, it's like the revival, and it did kind of drop off the radar, except for a few people that went down the rabbit hole and said, heck no, we want it back, right? And I know you understand that. And I look at this like I want all the communities. This is my personal goal with the guide and everything we're doing with the podcast and everything is to be a huge corridor of communities that connect so that people can understand the connection of history. And when you were talking about Miami, did I say it right?
Yes.
I'm getting my yeah, it's a new language. I have to speak Oklahoman. When you look at all these crossings that you have, and we talk about American history, it is huge because so many states are connected to you. So when people are traveling, somehow you're connected in some way. Not all, but you're going to be in some way. And I'm thinking family history, tracing ancestry, that kind of thing. I just kind of feel like everyone needs to go to you.
Well,
Just
and
everyone go see Jordan.
that's the one thing that's unique about our museum is our mission is not really centralized around one topic or one town. It's so vast, and so there's just such a breadth and depth to our collection that we have everything from industry, communities, tribal, and we get a lot of those same questions or those same individuals. We get people who are either coming in and maybe they're researching about their family. We even get individuals who they're planning a class reunion and they're wanting to look in our archive to pull out old yearbooks to try to remember, did they get everybody on their class roster and everything, or trying to pull out some pictures or things for a reunion, or just questions about things. And sometimes it just something sparks somebody's curiosity, because I get everything from not just genealogy, but I got a call, I think this was sometime last year, but somebody was just driving through town and they saw that our Riverview Park down by the fairgrounds is called George Francis Riverview Park. And they called the museum because they were just curious who was George Francis. Well, he was the over the parks department for many years for the city, and they renamed the park after him when he retired.
See that that goes with us. We travel the country documenting parks, so we want to know who the names are. So
Uh-huh.
that's a huge deal. I
Which one of
love.
the key things also bringing that up is our Riverview Park down there at the fairgrounds is where the Jefferson Highway tourist camp was in Miami.
Oh, so you actually have a camp.
Yes, yeah, there were two Jefferson Highway campsites in Ottawa County. There was the one in Miami and Riverview Park at the fairgrounds, and then the other one was at Afton.
That's right. So you're close to all of those, like
Yes.
real close, real close. Whew. Okay. So when someone walks into the museum, so number one, you can go to the tourist camps. Do they have signage yet?
There's not
Oh,
actually nothing, nothing left there of the remnants of the day. You could visit the site, but there's no signage or anything. And
yet.
we're working towards getting
I know.
some signage put up.
I said yet. I always go yet because
Yeah.
somewhere, even if it takes 20 years, yet,
Yes.
and I think that's important because I always think about the ones who drove the highway at the beginning of cars. I mean, we've got to think, isn't that kind of cool about this highway that it was when cars were first made, pretty
Yes.
much? And then they're camping. I mean, they went to Louisiana and car camped next to the water, and I'm going, you got chowed down by mosquitoes. You did.
Yeah.
I mean, it's maybe we have more mosquitoes now. I don't know, but I thought like when I go through the old guides, I'm just amazed at what these people did for travel, and now we're like, well, this air conditioner isn't working so well.
Yeah.
So the history is so good to kind of bring us back to perspective. You've got to see that as a museum director to kind of remind us of who we are and what's fanciful and what's not. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
So tell about that. People come down to the museum. When they walk in the doors, I know you're going through this massive renovation, which is exciting. So we'll follow you on that journey. So expect more podcasts, everyone. But right now, for the rest of this year, what can people expect to see at the museum when they walk in the doors?
So currently, which again, we're at our annex location in Miami, which is at 23 North Main. And right now, it just went up the first of this month and it'll be up through the end of June. We do quarterly rotating exhibits. So right now, we have an exhibit called Dust, Drought, and Dreams Gone Dry, which is about the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression era. It's actually a partner exhibit because we do like to reach out and partner with other events or milestones or things that are going on in the community. So our library over the last year has been doing a book series with a grant over the Grapes of Wrath, and so they've
Oh,
been covering book studies and workshops about that piece by John Steinbeck. And we decided to host this traveling exhibit coming through because they're kind of June is kind of their final wrap up month of that project. So that's our current quarterly exhibit. the next quarter in July through September, we're going to have an exhibit about 80 years since Silver Skies, which is in reference to Miami was one of the 7 sites in the United States that during World War II we trained British pilots during the war, and we had about 2,100 cadets receive their wings, their pilot's license here in Miami.
Wow, I did not know that. Okay, we're going to do another show on that because I have the English side to talk to you.
For sure.
No, I mean it. I mean it. Seriously. Oh, we have to do this. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. This is
So
exciting.
that'll be July through September when we have that quarterly exhibit up.
Oh,
So this
wow.
marks 80 years since the school closed. At the end of World War II, the school sites closed.
Wow. Wow. This is amazing history. Okay, so everyone can come in July for that. Okay. What's next?
And then our next quarter, which is another annual tradition that we've started, will be what we call our giving trees. So we invite any group or organization in the community to decorate a Christmas tree in the museum, and it's $1 a vote to come in, so we're free admission to the museum. But this is just one particular project that we ask our visitors just to do $1 a vote during that time to give back to area organizations. And so any of them can put up any pictures or brochures. If somebody'd like a brochure to learn more how to donate or how to become a volunteer or get involved in that organization, but just to set up about maybe who they are or what they do or maybe a special project that they're doing. And we have a culmination of the first year we did it, we had about 11 trees. This last Christmas, we almost had about 20 trees throughout the museum. And I've already had several calls from other organizations that want to participate. And so through that, we had anybody and everybody there were several local youth groups and churches. There was the local Girl Scout troop, the 4-H club, the Friends of the Coleman had a tree, the Friends of the Library, our local Miami Kiwanis Club had a tree, our local Arts and Humanities Council, and several other groups that came in. And they have certain funds that they spend towards maybe projects related to the school or a food pantry or something. And we
Oh,
kind of do that as just a way to kind of highlight and show everybody, other groups or other ways to get involved in our community.
I love this. This is something I'm finding out about the Jefferson Highway as we do this project of the Jefferson Highway Travel Guide and continuing the podcast. Is there's so much giving in community? It seems like,
Yes.
which I think is a very refreshing, wonderful thing. It's kind of goes beyond social media drama, right? And so I
Yes.
kind of want people to travel the highway, go see these amazing places, go learn the history. And, maybe you have ancestors that are connected. But I am going to call on you for this English connection on World War II. I'm serious. We're going to do something on that.
For sure.
So
I'd love to.
oh man, you won't believe it. I got a connection on that. That's going
All
to be
right.
huge, huge.
Yeah.
Jordan, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to have more of Jordan on several podcasts. So just stay tuned. If you'll join us, we have to pinch his arm to do that and twist his arm and get him on here. But everyone go to dobsonmuseum.com. The link is in the episode notes. You're going to hear more on the Jefferson Highway over the next few years. So stay tuned. Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us here on the Big Blend Radio Jefferson Highway Show. The show airs every fourth Thursday, and we encourage you to go to jeffersonhighway.org to learn more about the Jefferson Highway Association or even become a member. You can also dig into the history of the highway and share travel notes with friends at the Jefferson Highway Association Facebook group. Follow our shows at bigblendradio.com. Happy travels!